This is the Beyond the Prophy podcast, the podcast that empowers you and inspires you to seek career excellence while pursuing your passion. And I'm your host, Jasmine Haley. Welcome to the Beyond the Prophy podcast. I have a very special guest who I have never met in person, but have definitely felt her amazing presence online. And I would love to welcome Erika Spring onto the podcast. Thank you so much, Erika.
Well, hi, Jasmine. I'm so excited to be finally getting to put a face and a name and voice all together. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I was introduced to you in the Trapped in the Op group. I think that's where I first... Yes. That's what it is. Yep. And I just love your presence and what you have put forth out there. You're very transparent. You've talked about owning a business, trying to work towards building and strengthening it, and talking about the challenges of that. And you're also very, very committed to excellence in dental hygiene, which has kind of led you to completing a master's degree. Mm-hmm. and going into education. So I think your story and your journey, which is still continuing on, we're just at the tip of it right now. I think it's definitely going to be very empowering, inspiring to listeners. So I can't wait to kind of dive in and hear more about you.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's great. I'm excited to share.
All right. So you've worked in dentistry for over 20 years. You started off as a chairside dental assistant before you became a dental hygienist. What was that transition like for you, going from dental assisting into dental hygiene?
Well, actually, I went through a vocational program in high school because I felt at the time I really wanted to be employable right out of high school. And my mom was a dental assistant. My dad was a teacher. He had many years of education behind him. And I thought, let me go through this vocational school and see where I end up. I can at least be employed because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, Jasmine. So, looking back, I was young. I moved around a little bit, but I was able to find, employment anywhere that I ended up across the United States. So I traveled a little bit. And when I ended up in an orthodontic office and I had my own chair with my own patients and I saw, the kids coming in and poor oral hygiene, that was really my turnkey, like I need to do something different. I felt like I had more to offer, and I felt like I really liked the autonomy of treating my own patients. So that's when I got back to North Carolina, I decided to apply for dental hygiene school. So I really love the autonomy, and I wasn't a very good assistant. I think I had too much autonomy for my own good.
Oh, that's so funny. You know what? You're the second person I've met. Siobhan Healy is the first who actually did the same thing I did. And I went to Hillcrest High School, and I did a dental assisting program in high school. So I started when I was 16 working in a dental office. Absolutely. And it was a great experience. I'm glad that I did that. It made me know for sure that dentistry was the career for me. I knew when I was 13. But it was solidified once I started working in there. So I love the fact that you started off early, and I am a huge advocate for that for young people today to have that. You don't see that many programs like that, though, anymore.
No, you don't see that many programs. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised when I was living in Virginia Beach that they actually had a career and technology center right around the corner from where I lived. And I was able to go in and speak to the students because I thought, I was a vocational school graduate, and let me tell you where I started so they could kind of see my journey. And, I think education now in K through 12 is such a challenge that it gives these, younger generation adolescents just some focus on that. Maybe they don't want to go to college, but they want to be more than just, a server somewhere. So I think it really has some merit because they can they can actually get employed, right out of school, at least for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you said that you went from dental assisting to dental hygiene, which was a great segue. Mm-hmm. You've continued on with your education, which I absolutely love. Uh-huh. I feel that even if you feel like you want to be in a clinical practice, you need to advance your degree. Mm-hmm. I just feel like every single degree I've had has elevated my thinking beyond what I could even imagine. It's more than just getting that degree. But you also served as a new patient coordinator. So what is that? Like, what did that specifically do for you in your career?
Sure. Well, let me backtrack just a little bit. When I was living out west, I began teaching part-time at a community college just as an adjunct clinical instructor, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And that was kind of my spark to get my master's degree. And when I returned, to my bachelor's degree, and when I returned to North Carolina, a job opportunity opened at Coastal Carolina Community College, and my instructor, who was an instructor here for 35 years, was retiring. And I was offered the position, so I took that position. And in the meantime, I had married a Marine who was, on active duty. So about 4 years into my education process here, we had to move to Virginia. And I thought life was over. I'm like, I will never get back in this institution because people retire from here. I was giving up my dream job because I just fell in love with the students and education, and I felt like I was giving back to the community in these young students, journey. And we ended up in Virginia, and I ended up working for Dr. Tanya Brown in Chesapeake, Virginia, who is a restorative and cosmetic dentist. And I worked with her off and on for probably 6 to 8 months, just kind of filling in part-time. And she embraced my experience as a hygienist at that time for 15 years, as well as my education background, and she created a spot for me as her new patient coordinator, which meant for her I was able to kind of strictly work with the new patients, and she was very unique in developing her own new patient kind of profile and protocol, because she did a lot more Spear Dawson type dentistry, which it was not your average just general dentistry in and out. We saw a lot of huge cases, a lot of full mouth restorations, and she really opened my eyes to another level of dentistry, restorative dentistry. I had worked in perio for a long time, so in general practice, but never to that level of restorative dentistry. So when we had cases that we were presenting, and it was, whether it was full mouth reconstruction or hybrid dentures with a lot of implants, it was just a phenomenal learning experience. And I really credit her with elevating my, want for education and the consulting and the speaking, and just being fortunate to call her, my mentor, because she just opened my eyes to so many different things, and she allowed me to kind of help co-create her new patient process and part of her team, as well as allowed me to kind of mentor some of the younger hygienists in her practice. And we just had a great working relationship, and she's just a, really phenomenal dentist who I really contribute to a lot of my, desire to move forward and continue learning. And, in hygiene school, you get just the tip of the iceberg on occlusion and even restorative work. And, her commitment to excellence with her patients really just sparked an interest to me, like, fire almost. I just couldn't believe, I'm like, I've been practicing all this time and nobody's ever explained this to me, or I didn't understand, because I was working perio. So it was a great opportunity for me I still did some chairside, scale and root planing and, prophies and stuff for her, but I had at least 2 patients a day that were full new patient exams with her, and we did a lot of treatment planning, co-diagnosing, and then we incorporated bacterial testing with her protocols. So it was just a phenomenal experience. It was wonderful, and it gave me just a little bit of the edge to kind of come out of the op, if you will.
Yes.
And she was great at embracing, things that we felt needed to be improved or to help her, make things better. So it was a really awesome opportunity.
Wow. I mean, you had the thing that most hygienists pray.
Oh, yes.
To have the relationship. Like, that's all we want. Is to be able to work. I mean, that's really true teamwork. Really, and really using both positions, the restorative and preventative, to its full potential.
Absolutely, full potential.
What's the disconnect? I mean, because I know that you do consulting. Why is it so difficult for us to come together and be able to work in that manner?
Well, it's interesting. I've been a clinical trainer for Acteon the last year or so, and that's allowed me to get into some of these practices. And now that I've relocated back to North Carolina, I've my last 2 years I was really dedicated to finishing this master's degree, which is a whole other conversation, and I'm literally 4 weeks away from turning in that last submission, so I'm super excited about that. But when I started working with with a life coach, and how I could start this business and what else I could do, and knowing that we were going to be leaving Virginia. And she was really the one who kind of sparked this interest in consulting. And you have this background behind you. How can you help others? And I always felt like my disconnect in practices was I cared more about the periodontal health than my dentist did. They kind of relied on us to, it's this or that, and then they were out the door. And which fell on us, and yet there was no real protocols or any real systems. And when I worked for Dr. Brown, it was the complete opposite. She really allowed us to help co-diagnose and kind of prepare the patient for the treatment that they needed. And she was on board, and she was on board 110%. And she stood, behind us, and felt like, we did a lot of team training to get to that point. Behind the scenes, and she was very gracious in allowing us to do that, because I also feel the disconnect is that sometimes the dentists don't want to invest that not that they don't want to invest the training, but maybe the time for the training, or it's too hard for them to understand the whole perio link, or they're focused on restorative because they want us to do it, yet there seems to be that disconnect when they come in. And I'll see dentists say, well, I don't, it's just 4 and 5 millimeter pockets, or it's just this, or it's just, they minimize that to the patients, which really
that word,
just or a little, a little bit of bleeding. And I'm like, well, this patient is 4 and 5 millimeters, but there's 130 sites of bleeding, or so I think too that I wish that the dental community or the dentists could, I think it's easier for them to have those systems and protocols into place so that they can train their staff and they can all be on the same page. And I think that flows right into, case acceptance for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I think, so I see now why it's kind of led you to this revolutionary hygiene, which you've recently packaged that into, I wouldn't say a new brand, but a new frame, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of a new frame. And, originally when you said we kind of met through Trapped in an Op, prior to that, as I was kind of getting my vision for revolutionary hygiene going, I'm a hygienist, so I'm a perfectionist, and, kind of like what you said, we wait till everything's perfect. And I kind of felt like I was at that stage where if I don't get this website out, it's not going to be real. And I felt like I was holding myself back. Being the perfectionist, type A, typical hygiene personality. And I started with revolutionary hygiene and kind of got my, my protocols and my framework together, and I wanted to get the name out there. And as I started kind of working through that, I just kind of felt like it wasn't quite finished. Like it was my first attempt, and I felt like this is a good start, but I want it more defined. I had been out speaking some. I had gotten to talk to other professionals, and I felt like I needed to just kind of refresh and redefine that original vision. So I don't think it's too far off, but I wanted just to be a little bit, better in the clarity department.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it takes a huge amount of courage and or bravery. It's all really the same thing, to step out and do your own thing. What really pushed you in that direction? Because I started Beyond the Prophy podcast primarily because Mom Genesis is really a feel good, and we talk about how they've kind of managed being a mother, and you are a mom and your wife, and there's some challenges along with that. But I really wanted to focus on the discontentment that you see in our profession. And a lot of times, if we're not at these dental hygiene conferences, if you're not networking all the time, you just don't get a chance to hear other people's stories. And this is making it easier and more accessible for people to get motivated and empowered. So what really drove you to do that? And if there's a hygienist that may be listening that is feeling in a rut and just not satisfied, what would you say in your particular journey that has helped you to be able to keep that momentum up?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing was I had to look back and think, everything happens for a reason, because I was in this dream job teaching at the community college, and we got orders, and I ended up with Dr. Tanya Brown. And by way of, referral, I was able to speak and have several conversations with Linda Miles, who is, a milestone of, success. And I felt really fortunate to be able to speak to both of those ladies very frankly and say, look, I'm in this profession going on 20 years by the time we get orders again. And I know physically the demands, my body is not going to be able to come up with, or not be able to, not to keep up with. And I decided that where am I going to go from here? If I can't get back into teaching, because I really didn't know another teaching position would be open when we got back here, what am I going to do? And I love education, and I was able to do some clinical mentoring with some young hygienists there in Virginia. And I really feel that I owe that credit again to Dr. Tanya Brown and even Linda Miles, who kind of said, you've got a lot of talent for teaching and education and the clinical skills. I've, had many, many years of perio practice, and that instrumentation to me is kind of my forte, and I love it. And that was really kind of the nail on the head. When I spoke to Linda Miles, she basically was the one who said, well, you have kind of two options. You can go to work for somebody else, or you can go to work for yourself. And why do you want to work for somebody else when you can create, your own vision, your own brand, your own, way of doing things? And she said, you can meld all of that together. And that's where I kind of started with Revolutionary Hygiene. And then again, continuing to work on my master's degree, kind of put a lot of coaching and consulting on the back burner for a while, and I'm getting ready, hopefully in 2008, to make some bigger connections and get out there and network and do some speaking engagements. I was able to attend NCDHA this year, and that was really helpful. I met a lot of not only educators and just a lot of connections, even through Trapped in an Op. So it's been a really good network, and everybody, I think too, you can attest to the charisma and the momentum and the energy that everybody has in Trapped, thanks to Elijah, who can really just, like you said, we're all moms and wives and, million things going on at the same time. So I think just staying in that momentum, thinking, it's just, some days it's just one day at a time. It's like, if I can get one task done, then tomorrow I can do something else. And it's been, it'll be coming to an end the next couple weeks, where I can finally submit that last project and then really focus on Spring Innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow. I love the fact that you mentioned the need for mentors. It's hard when you are like ourselves, which are type A personalities. You are used to having everything under control for the most part, or in your mind you think you have it under control,
right?
And you try to do everything on your own, but really in having a fulfilling career, you cannot. And you save so much heartache by reaching out to those who have already done it.
Yes.
And creating genuine relationships, because what it is a relationship, and people can tell if you're not being genuine. They can tell if you have an ulterior motive where you're just out for yourself. And these individuals who are rock star hygienists, they're there and they really do want to help, and they really do care.
I agree.
Really
well, and just on that note too, I think one of the things about having a mentor, and like you said, being surrounded by people who have done it before or done it their own way, and it's like there's so much information. I thought, my gosh, how am I going to launch this? And there's so many other speakers and consultants, and I think that you kind of launched Beyond the Prophy around the same time I launched Revolutionary Hygiene, because I can remember finding your website kind of out of the way, and And I thought, how am I ever going to be, successful at this? There's so many people doing this. And my coach at the time, she said, Erika, there's so many people out there. You're going to put your own spin on this. You're going to put your own personality into it. You're going to focus on different things, and that will resonate. She said, there's more than enough for everybody going around. And that just, resonated with me. And then, even now when you look on Trapped, I mean, we've grown from 5,000 people to almost 10,000 people. And, everybody is still doing their own thing and progressing. And it's been really fun to kind of watch everybody grow in their own way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find it, I love the fact that you bring out to stay focused and realize, what someone explained to you, which was that you're going to do things your own way, and there is enough for everyone. I think for me, that has been the biggest lesson for myself as I've been trying to pursue something on my own and working on my speaking career and working on, Beyond the Prophy and Mom Gymnast. I started in April of 2016. That's when Beyond the Prophy launched. And it's evolved already within a year and a half, and I would have to say that is the one thing that really makes you fearful, I guess, of continuing on, because you see people hopping out of the works and they're all just as passionate as you are. But again, you've got to be focused on what your mission and your vision is. And I've seen where there are times when I focus on that, and I'm sure you've seen that too. You see the fruits of your labor manifest, and it's something beautiful.
Sure, absolutely. And I think the need too, when I talk to hygienists or when I speak, even locally, I see what's not being done in practices, and I see, they're not perio-charting, or they're seeing patients in 40 or 50 minutes. And, you ask a crowd of hygienists, well, what is your perio percentage? And I see those loopholes that are still open. And I'm like, that's what keeps me going, because I'm like, there is much more you can do. There's much more than we can do. And then I feel like, so much more the profession can do. I know you're an ADHA member, as am I. And, going forward, I'm a true advocate for the advanced practitioner protocols that are being looked at in several states. And I feel like there's so much we can do for patients and for our profession that keeps me going as well. And now I'm blessed to have these young professionals in my class, and I get to share not only my experience with them, but show them the future, and hope that if they can take one or two things from their time here at Coastal and, catapult them forward into their career or making a difference in the profession, because I'm only hoping that North Carolina gets on board so we can do local anesthesia before I retire.
I can't believe you guys aren't, but who am I to say that? Because Maryland, I mean, we haven't really been doing it since 2008 or 9, and that's really nothing,
right?
Compared to the 70s for other people on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's well, I might be 70 by the time we get to do local anesthesia here.
Your hand will still be steady. You can do it.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and the thing is when I lived in a couple other states out west, I had that credential in 2 other states, and it was great. So, yeah. So when I came back to North Carolina, and I'm like, well, great. I have to just go back to asking for permission to have anesthesia. So, but that's okay.
Man, oh, man. Oh, I would just be... I don't know. I love North Carolina. It's beautiful. I don't know. That would keep me away from moving there. I mean, you had no choice because you're going with your family, but... I can see how that can be definitely frustrating, especially if you experience that expanded practice or services as a dental hygienist.
For sure.
So you've gotten your master's. You're working on it currently. You haven't graduated yet, but you are almost there. In educational leadership. Mm-hmm. What made you decide on that degree?
Well, I did my bachelor's degree in dental hygiene through Northern Arizona University, and at the time, I was looking at education, and I knew I had to have a degree above what I was teaching. So obviously I went through their online completion program. I got my bachelor's in dental hygiene back in 2009. So when it came time to look at the future, and I looked at, speaking and consulting and the business aspect, and I went through, oh my God, I think months of, curriculum choices and degree options. And I decided that I would limit myself if I chose to do a master's degree in dental hygiene. And I thought, well, my true passion is education and teaching. But yet I still felt like I lacked some of the leadership courses or even management courses. So Northern Arizona was one of the few colleges that actually had this educational leadership, and I was able to pick a lot of my electives in what I felt would be necessary to kind of complement my business. So a lot of the leadership courses, curriculum design, I mean, there was just a lot of flexibility for me there. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited to be working on my final portfolio, and that is going to be submitted on the 9th, and then I am done. So I'm super excited about that. I know, it's been a long time coming. So I decided, and education is great, but you are limited sometimes because of our semester schedule. So I will be doing grades on December 15th and watching commencement probably from my office online.
No. Oh, nothing's going on. I don't care what's going on. I'm not missing mine. Yeah. I'm going to be dabbing my way across.
Well,
they're going to give me my diploma and I'm going to be dab.
Yep. I'm slated to walk in May, so we'll see if that pans out. But I'm actually officially done. I'll still be a graduate of 2017, so that's okay.
Good. Yeah, you've got to walk, and I can't, I envision on the days that I feel so overwhelmed, I actually envision myself walking, taking pictures with my kids. That's what I'm trying to focus on, because I tell you, there's some days where you just want to pull out all the rest of your hair. It's probably why I've cut off all my hair. Right. Anytime, I have no hair in my head. I was just there this last week, and I was like, can you cut a little bit more? And she's like, Jasmine, you're not going to have anything left on your head. And I'm like, but I don't want it. I want to be bald. Right. And I know it's because of the overwhelming feeling of school, and I'm almost there, and whenever I'm dealing with something emotional like this, I cut my hair. It's gone. Right.
Well, it must be contagious, because I did the same thing not too long ago, and in our Marine Corps ball pictures, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do to my hair because it's so short. But I think you're absolutely right. It must be the older you get, or maybe it's the more wise we get, the shorter our hair gets, or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, my poor husband, he's suffering because he wants my hair to grow back, and I told him I'll grow it back, eventually. I don't know. I have two girls though. I have two girls with very long hair. Oh. So. Anywho, all right, so I don't even know where else to start. I mean, there's so much, and I definitely want to have you back, because we haven't even gone over everything yet. So, all right, many people who are looking for career changes are interested in working with corporate entities, and you have some industry partners that you've worked with. Can you just briefly explain how a dental hygienist who may be in clinical care and is looking to do more, how can they prepare themselves to work with corporate entities or get in a position to be recognized by them in their particular role that they have?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to say my speaking career, my launch actually started with two ladies out of the Greensboro, North Carolina area, Pam Causey and Vicki Councilman, and they are fabulous super hygienists, wives, moms, entrepreneurs, and they started their company, Saving Gracies. And when I was teaching many years ago, they spoke at our student meeting for NCDHA. And what they do is they actually purchase the student instrument kits from the students and resell them as gently used instruments to other practices. And I can't even remember, to be honest with you, how we sparked up a conversation, but I reached out to them. I'm sure it was to purchase instruments, and we had this conversation, and they were looking at comprehensive care and putting on a CE, and Vicki reached out to me and said, Erika, you've been teaching. She's like, I need some help putting this together. Could we kind of pull together and do this whole CE presentation? And I'm like, sure. So we did, and we've spoken in several areas, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, here on the coast, North Carolina. And it really started out, Jasmine, as just kind of a like-minded mission, if you will. They're dedicated, passionate. They want to spread the word about comprehensive care and, the oral systemic link. And I think really for me, networking with them really gave me some encouragement, like, this can be real. We can really do this. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I work with somebody, it always, launches me to do better, because I feel like I'm more empowered because we're doing this as a team. So I think networking is absolutely important, and really being clear on what you believe in. And I know as young hygienists, or even hygienists that have been, in the op for many, many years, we get kind of stagnant, and I feel like there's, because of time, because of money, and even myself, I'm like, I really wish I could get to a point where I could get on one of the Smiles at Sea cruises, and it is on my bucket list. But, we get overwhelmed, and there's so much going on that I've learned that sometimes it's okay to say no. It may not be no forever, but it may be no right now. And in with that networking, finding those professionals who kind of believe in the same things that we believe in has really helped. The other thing that I've found really helpful is connecting with your reps, whether it's Shine or, an instrument company, because I really think that even in an educational setting, I've had several opportunities in this past year before I came back to the college to interview. And, some of the interviews went well, trying to get out of the op, and some of the interviews maybe didn't go well. And I kind of felt guilty almost, that I'm like, gosh, I feel like I really blew it. But in hindsight, I felt like, I was wanting out of the op so bad that I was almost willing to take anything. And you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was kind of like, I felt bad, but I'm like, well, it's really not what I want. So I think as we, get older and wiser, and you have that confidence to be like, no, this really isn't a good fit for me. But, doing something with Pam and Vicky was a great fit. And I feel like your audience, that resonates with them when they can see your passion and your inspiration through that. And I've just been really fortunate to kind of connect with a lot of the Hugh Freedy reps. And of course, I've been in different states and different areas. So my circle, has been very generous to me. And working with, even Doug at Get Hired RDH, he started helped me out with my resume and my website originally for Revolutionary Hygiene. And, he's just a wealth of knowledge. And I want to bring some of his curriculum into, some of the classes that I'm teaching here.
Yeah, and I'm definitely, for listeners, we'll put Doug's website up there, because I've seen what he's done for Erika, and he's very professional. He's done a lot of
wonderful
resumes and websites for people, and he's great. He's really great. I like the message that he puts out there. I haven't personally used him. I've just seen what he's done for other people.
Well, I have personally used him for not only my resume, several documents. He did postcards when I was transitioning in my move. He's helped me with my website. We've done a couple kind of conferencing things on some different ideas that he and I wanted to put together, and he is super fabulous. So highly recommend Doug, and, I just don't have enough good things to say. He's just fabulous.
That is awesome. So, all right, I have my last two questions for you.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you sharing that information. I feel that it would be very valuable to the listeners. So what would you say is the best career advice you've ever been given so far in your journey?
I would say the best career advice that I've been given is to just keep going forward. It's a journey, and it is your own journey, and you can make it as fast or slow as you want to. And, really, I think finding a mentor and finding somebody else who has been in your shoes or my shoes has been instrumental. And then I also think the other thing is giving back, giving back for me as a mentor. And I still have students that call that were graduates from years and years ago, or I have other hygienists that, call that I've worked with. And what would you do about this? So, I feel like that sense of giving back is also very, very rewarding, because, owning your own business and diving in and trying to make a career, or, two careers out of something, it can be really daunting at times. And I know you've experienced that too with everything we all have going on. So I've learned to just take things one step at a time, and it's okay if it's not perfect. We just have to keep going forward.
Absolutely. Wow. Oh, well, last question.
Okay.
What was the last book you read?
The last book I'm actually still listening to is Big Magic.
Ah, I read that one. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm still in the process because, I can only absorb so much. But now that I'm commuting, I can at least, download a book and keep going.
Absolutely. Audible is a lifesaver for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be reading. Right now, I'm reading Leaders Eat Last.
Oh, yes. I've read that, and it's fabulous.
Yes, it's very, very good. Very interesting approach, too, when it comes to looking at leadership and looking at how the body works. I mean, it's phenomenal. Anywho, I thank you so much, Erika, for being on the show. I can't believe 35 minutes passed by that quickly. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and talking a little bit about your career. If listeners are interested in getting in contact with you, where can they find you? How should they contact you?
Sure. They can check me out at my new website, and that's www.springinnovative.com. My email is info@springinnovative.com, and I have a contact number listed there as well. And it's been truly a pleasure just getting to visit with you and talk on the show, and I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much, Erika. All right.
Thanks, Jasmine. Bye.